Hi everyone, I'm Matt from Looking to Bitcoin, and today we're going to be doing a Bitcoin roundup to discuss the current market conditions. We're going to try and gain some insight into Bitcoin's recent price action and how we should consider positioning ourselves going forward. To do this, we'll be using a number of resources that are all freely available on lookintobitcoin.com, your number one source for Bitcoin information. If you haven't already, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to ensure you're receiving all of our content as soon as it's released. So right now we're just on the Bitcoin live price page here on lookintobitcoin.com, and February so far has been a fairly up and down month. We've had a fair bit of chop, a fair bit of sideways, some volatility. Obviously we have had some great moves to the upside, but we have had some rather stark decreases in Bitcoin's price also. So a bit of a mixed bag. I'd say overall very positive, especially considering January gave us an amazing start to 2023, and from the lows we made in late last year, we're up well over 50% from those lows to the most recent highs we've had. So definitely nothing to complain about. Definitely a more positive start to this year than we had in the previous few months. So nothing to complain about. But overall, February so far has been rather neutral, a little bit more bullish, but nothing too amazing. But if we just scroll down here a little bit, I think one thing we really need to hone in on is, even though we've had a bit of a mixed bag, it has been somewhat more bullish. But overall, I think the market is getting a little greedy. Not necessarily overheated to the upside. I know we have had a rather stark move to the upside, almost non-stop, with only a few pullbacks here and there of 10% or so. But really, the market is getting quite greedy, considering we have only been up off the lows in Bitcoin, assuming the lows we already have are the lows of this bear cycle. We only have been off those lows for a couple months or so. So really, I think the market getting this excited this early on isn't necessarily the worst thing, but I just think we need to maybe take a step back and have a more unemotional, unbiased view of where we may be, considering the current price action and where we've been for about a year in Bitcoin's price. If we look at the Fear and Greed Index a little bit more in depth, recently we've had scores of 60, 61 even yesterday, and as I film this, it's been 460 days since we last had Fear and Greed Index scores that high, when price was above $60,000. That was on the 16th of November 2021. So 460 days ago, well over a year. So really, considering we're as greedy as we were when price was over $60,000, maybe gives us a little bit of insight into how maybe sentiment is getting a little bit preemptively excited, considering, as I said, we've only been off the lows for a few weeks, a couple months from Bitcoin's price bottom. Now, this isn't just to say that now that we've got a little bit excited in the market that we're well overdue a correction or a pullback. Many people could argue that we've been overdue a pullback for a while, but really, Bitcoin, when it starts moving to the upside, no one really wants to stand in front of that train, because really, it just does not stop, especially when we really gain some momentum and some buy pressure to the upside. So of course, don't take this all as just bearish FUD. Really, I'm just trying to help you stay unbiased and well-informed and unemotional when it comes to your decisions. Realistically, you need to take an unbiased view and try and stick to your plan, trading and investing strategy without taking in too much external factors and having your decisions influenced by external people, channels, social media posts, etc. You need to look after your own trading and investing. But all I'm trying to say is right now, having been in a bear market for well over a year now, having a couple months of price action, to me doesn't necessarily warrant this much greed and excitement in the market. Especially if we move over to the 200 weekly moving average heat map. So obviously we've been beneath this 200 weekly moving average for a fair amount of time now. This is calculated by just using the 200 previous closing prices of Bitcoin's price and then averaging that out. And we can see in every Bitcoin bear market, this is usually acted as almost the bottoming price, or a price where Bitcoin found a little bit of support before rebounding, but we can see in this bear market, we've actually dipped beneath it for a fairly substantial amount of time, for the first time ever, in fact. So if we just zoom in onto this most recent cycle, we can see we've had multiple consecutive months beneath this 200 weekly moving average heat map. And of course, we are over 50% up from the lows Bitcoin has most recently made. But really, we have just reached this 200 weekly moving average, which currently sits at around $25,000. And as I film this, Bitcoin is teetering around 24,700. But really, we've tested it. If you look at the exchange lower time frame charts, where it takes into account the highs and lows of the intraday price, we can see we have actually retested this value a few times, and each time Bitcoin actually decreases in price afterwards, which maybe suggests a lot of traders and investors are watching this level to potentially take some profits on their short-term position, or maybe just to try and get out at a break-even price if they've been in Bitcoin investments for a little while and have just seen their investments lose value. Maybe they just want to cut their losses short. But really, this is a key level to watch, especially considering, like I said, this has been very much the bottom support in all of Bitcoin's previous bear cycles. So even though this price action we've had is very positive, I think until we really break above convincingly and potentially even find some buy pressure, some support off of this 200 weekly moving average, this may be considered a bear market rally. I don't want to be too bearish, like I said again, but just something to consider, that even though we are getting a little excited with the price, there is some heavy resistance and some sell pressure above us, especially if we go here. So this is the TradingView chart for Bitcoin. We can see this line I've drawn on from a technical perspective does line up with the previous lows we made here back in May 2022. And we can see as Bitcoin rallied up off the lows we made in about June 2022 at $17,500, Bitcoin rebounded to the prices we're currently sitting at now. So this is fairly significant line. Once we actually bounced off this, it was what we would consider support, as this is where price rebounded after it had a stark decrease in price. But once we broke through this and price rebounded again, we came and tested this and it turned into what we call resistance, where after we'd broken past it and we came back up, a lot of sellers came in at this level, which really indicates it's a key level that a lot of traders and investors are watching. And in Bitcoin's most recent price action, we can see a very similar occurrence here, where Bitcoin's come up, tested this level, and has actually decreased in value a little bit following that. And of course, as I film this, it's almost a guaranteed fact that once this actually goes live and you're watching this, we'll have blown past this and this will be an irrelevant line that I'm discussing. But really, it's just something we need to consider because these kind of levels exist in Bitcoin. And a lot of people do watch these, especially as we get further and increase in Bitcoin's price even more. We can see substantial levels at around $28,000, $30,000, all the way up to 46, and the previous all-time high, $69,000. People are going to be watching these levels to see how Bitcoin's price reacts, and it gives us a good indication of how strong the move to the upside in Bitcoin is. And finally, to not sound too bearish, we have here the reserve risk chart, which is actually showing us a decent entry is still possible on Bitcoin. So the reserve risk is a fairly complex metric we have here on lookintobitcoin.com, which is dividing the Bitcoin price by the HODL bank. Now, we have done videos on the reserve risk, so I definitely recommend checking them out if you haven't already, as we really don't have too much time to go into all of the maths required to figure this out. But if you go on to the lookintobitcoin.com site, you can actually scroll down and understand all the maths and logic behind how we calculate this. But if we scroll back up, we can see this is still indicating that Bitcoin isn't too overheated. Definitely on a macro long-term investment cycle, we definitely still have a lot of value that can be seen in Bitcoin at these prices. If we actually zoom in a little bit so we can just focus on price and this reserve risk ratio, if we just zoom in a little bit, I know the green box extends fairly high on this price chart here. So I think we could actually draw this a little bit more accurate to Bitcoin's price action. So if we just draw this box covering these prices we had here, we can see in all of Bitcoin's bear cycles, once we actually reach these lows on the reserve risk level, this was a great time for a risk adjusted return investment. There may have been a little bit of drawdown afterwards. There may have been some boring sideways choppy price action as Bitcoin really found a solid foundation. But we can see we are well within this box here. So really from a long-term perspective, even though we might be a little bit off the lows, even though we might retrace a little bit in price in the coming days, weeks potentially, really on a long-term perspective, this is still a great area to consider dollar cost averaging into your Bitcoin positions. So just to summarize, February has provided increased levels of volatility and choppy conditions following an over 50% price increase since the start of the year, which obviously is a great thing for Bitcoin's price. And don't get me wrong, I'm more than happy to see Bitcoin increase in value exponentially for as long as it may do. But really, we just need to take a step back and take an unbiased view with our investments. Market sentiment is at its greediest level since November 2021, according to the Fear and Greed Index chart. And we need to make sure we don't get too carried away with Bitcoin's recent price action. And we just need to stick to our long-term trading and investing strategies without being too swayed by the things we may be seeing or reading, or just taken into account with Bitcoin's recent price action. If you like this video, then please visit lookintobitcoin.com, where you can also consider becoming a site subscriber to gain access to live chats, in-depth newsletters, indicator alerts, private trading scripts, and more, all for a fraction of the standard industry price. And let me know in the comments down below and on social media what your thoughts are on the current price action. Am I being a little bit too bearish and pessimistic here? Do you agree with my idea that maybe Bitcoin is potentially a little overheated, at least in the short term? Don't get me wrong, in the long term, I'm very bullish on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as an asset class. But really, let me know your thoughts are. Where do you think price may be in the next week, month, year? I'm very much looking forward to reading and replying to all of them. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.